Hey guys, welcome back to the revision series. So in the previous session, we are successfully done with revising the chapter, risk assessment and internal control and also materiality. So now in this session, we are going to revise our next chapter, which is audit planning, strategy and execution. Comparatively very small chapter than the chapters whatever we have revised it till now. This chapter is comparatively very small, very limited conceptual discussion will be there. So we can easily wind up this chapter in somewhere around 30 to 45 minutes. So quickly we will try to wind it up. Sir, what basically all this chapter is about? As the name itself says, this is the chapter which is going to talk about planning of the audit of the financial statements. This chapter is mainly going to concentrate on, not mainly concentrating, the only concentration of this chapter is regarding planning of the audit, how we are supposed to do the planning for the audit of the financial statements, what and all the various steps involved in the planning process, so how we have to execute that plan. So we are going to talk more about this, and whatever discussion we are going to have in this chapter, all that discussion has been taken from SA 300. So when I say I am revising the chapter audit planning, strategy and execution, in fact I am trying to revise the content from SA 300. So SA 300 is a standard which is going to talk about the planning of the audit of the financial statements. Now let us go into the chapter now. Guys, as we all know, to do any activity we do a lot of planning. Planning is the most important thing. If you don't have a plan, then you are not going to make anything happen. Like for example, take an example. If I am taking this marathon series, if I am taking this revision series, I have planned this revision series well in advance. So for each chapter, how many hours I have to spend, what will be the total duration, what is the order of the chapters which I have to take, so in which chapters I have to spend more time, and also in each chapter which things I have to concentrate more. So like that, before these videos are getting recorded, I've spent a lot of time in planning. You also do a lot of planning it for your personal activities as well. For example, you want to have a trip along with your friends, so you are going to spend significant amount of time in the planning of the trip or not. So when you are going to start, what is the mode of travel, so what will be the starting point, what will be the ending point, how many days you are going to spend there, during that days what and all places you are going to visit. So like that, for any activity, planning is going to be damn important. If you have a perfect plan, then there are more chances that that activity will happen. If you just jump without any plan, the outcome will not be certain. So that's why for any activity we do a lot of planning. Even auditing is also not an exception. So I'm a practicing chartered accountant. Just imagine I'm a practicing chartered accountant. One day a client has come to me, a client X Limited has approached me, and he asked me, sir, please act as an auditor for our company. Please do the audit of the financial statements of our company. And he quoted some attractive price also. I said, yes, okay, I want to make money. I told, okay, sir, you pay me the fees, I will do the audit. Now, after you have accepted the audit, one fine day you have to start doing the audit. One fine day you have to start going to the client's premises, verify their books of accounts, verify their financial statements, obtain the audit evidence, and also try to form your opinion, give you a report. All these activities you have to actually execute. Don't you think before I actually start performing the audit, do I need to spend some time on planning of the audit also? 100% yes. So like the way we do the planning for any other activity, even for the audit also, planning is very important. It is going to be damn important. 100% you have to spend your time on planning. So now, how that planning of the audit has to happen? How that planning of the audit has to happen? That is what this chapter is going to give the guidance about. So what and all is involved in the planning, what and all are associated, what are the various steps involved in the planning of the audit. So all that we are going to talk about in this particular chapter. So having said that, let me directly jump into the questions now. So SA 300 says that planning of the audit involves three phases. SA 300 says audit planning involves three phases. When I say I'm developing an audit plan, that planning of the audit actually happens in three phases, or it involves three steps. So what are that three steps which are involved in audit planning? The planning of audit starts with establishing something called audit strategy. Then on the basis of that strategy, we are going to develop something called audit plan. And after the audit plan, we are going to develop something called audit program. So when I say audit planning, the planning of the audit involves all these three phases. It starts with establishment of something called overall audit strategy. Then there will be development of audit plan. After that, we are going to structure audit program. So when we are done with all these three steps, then we can say planning is completed. Now a question comes, sir, what happens in the audit strategy? What happens in the audit plan? What happens in the audit program? Let me try to explain it in a simple way. See, first of all, in the audit strategy, what we do is we just set the overall scope and direction of the audit. We are going to set overall scope and direction of the audit, which means if I have to put it in simple terms, in the audit strategy, we are going to decide only on two things. Number one, what is the time within which we are supposed to complete the audit? With how many resources we are supposed to complete the audit? This is the only thing which we are going to decide. When I say I'm establishing overall audit strategy, I'm setting the scope and direction of the entire audit. So practically speaking, in establishment of audit strategy, I decide on only two things: how much time I require for completing the audit, with how many resources I'm going to complete the audit. Let me give you a practical example to make you understand. I have been appointed as auditor of X Limited. So first, what I will do is I will try to understand about my client, its environment, what is the size of the client, how many branches are there, what kind of businesses they are doing, how many products they are dealing with, what and all is supposed to be covered in my audit. So basically, I try to perform my risk assessment procedures. I get to know about entity, environment, and its internal control. So depending on my understanding of the client's organization, I will decide, okay, for this client X Limited, I am going to complete my audit in 10 days of time with the 10 engagement team members. I'm going to complete the audit of this client X Limited with the 10 engagement team members in 10 days of span. That's all. This is my overall audit strategy. So in the overall audit strategy, the auditor is going to decide only on two things: what time you require for completing the audit and with how many resources you are going to complete the audit. It is a most summarized version. Okay, I have established the strategy. Let us take this typical example, whatever I was telling. So I have decided I am doing audit of the client X Limited. While establishing overall audit strategy, I decided that I needed 10 days of time. I needed how many resources? That is, my engagement team is going to contain how many resources? My engagement team is going to contain 10 members. Now, by deciding that, my audit strategy development has been over. That's all. Planning is completed. No. Next, what you have to do is, okay, you have decided 10 days of time. You have decided you will do the audit for 10 resources, but you have to divide this time and resources among various tasks which are involved in the audit. Division of the time and resources should happen. Like, for example, when I say audit, I have to perform risk assessment procedures, I have to perform compliance procedures, I have to perform substantive audit procedures, I need to verify internal controls in the area of incomes, I need to verify internal controls in the area of expenses, I need to verify internal controls in the area of assets, I need to verify internal controls in the area of liabilities. Similarly, when it comes to substantive audit procedures also, I need to obtain evidence regarding incomes, I need to obtain evidence regarding expenses, I need to obtain evidence regarding assets, I need to obtain evidence regarding liabilities. And then finally, after performing all the audit procedures, I have to form my conclusion. And then finally, I have to prepare my report. So when I say audit, in my audit, these many activities are involved. I should perform risk assessment procedures, compliance procedures in different areas, substantive audit procedures in different areas. Then discussion should happen, opinion should be formed, and a report has to be given. So now, these many activities I have to fulfill. Now I have 10 days of time. I have 10 engagement team members. This time and resources has to be divided among different tasks. So now what I will do is I will develop an audit plan, which will contain what activity is there, which will be done by which person. For example, this activity will be done by engagement partner. Engagement partner will do this risk assessment procedures. How many days? 1.5 days. Next, compliance procedures have to be performed. Compliance procedures, when it comes to internal controls in the area of incomes, Mr. A, article assistant, will do this work. For how many days? For half day. What time allocated for him is half day. Then we have expenses. Expenses related internal controls will be verified by Mr. B. For him, the time given will be 1 day. Then assets related internal controls will be verified by so and so. The time will be so and so. So like this, I am going to delegate different tasks to different people, and also I am going to delegate the time. So after compliance procedures, then substantive audit procedures. Who will take care of substantive audit procedures for incomes? Who is going to take care of substantive audit procedures for expenses? Who is going to take care of substantive audit procedures for assets? Who is going to take care of liabilities? I will allocate a person. Along with that, time also I will give. Then finally, after performing all the audit procedures, for discussion, how many days I am going to spend? So discussion is going to be done by entire engagement team. All the engagement team should come forward and discuss their findings. And for discussion, I will keep half day, and then final audit reporting and conclusion. I will give this work to entire engagement team. For 1 day, this report opinion will be formed and report will be given. So whatever you are able to see here, this simple extract, whatever you are able to see here, this is nothing but an audit plan. This is nothing but what? Audit plan. So if I put it in simple terms, what happens in the development of audit plan is, in the strategy, we establish how much time we want, how many resources we want, but that time and resources is required to be allocated among different activities. So the document which shows the allocation of time and resources to different people, different engagement team members, that document I'm going to call it as a audit plan. Now, after the development of audit plan, I have something called audit program. Now, audit program is the most detailed version. Audit program is most detailed version. So now what will be there in the audit program is, it contains instructions. It contains what? It is going to contain instructions. It is going to contain verification procedures, what verification procedures are required to be performed. It is going to contain details regarding whether to verify on internal controls or not. It is going to contain details regarding what should be the sample size. So detailed instructions regarding each and every area will be contained in one document called audit program. So if I have to give you example once again, so take here, when you come to expenses, from the in the audit plan, when I look at expenses related work, expenses related substantive audit procedures was allocated to one of the article assistant, Mr. B. Now he has to do that substantive audit procedures in 1.5 days. Now, in this 1.5 days, what and all things he has to perform? I will write a instruction. Like for example, number one, the auditor, the concerned engagement team member, whoever is performing substantive audit procedures in the expenses, whatever invoices are there, which are more than 1 lakh rupees, try to get external confirmation. Whatever invoice values are there, which are from 10 lakhs to 1 lakh rupees, you have to take a sample size of minimum 50%. Whatever invoices are there which are less than 10 lakh rupees, there take a sample of 10%. Here you have to do inquiry. Here you have to do inspection. What supporting documents I have to verify. So all the bills you have to verify. Purchase orders you have to verify. What should be the sample size? I have already told you about sample size also. So like this document, whatever is there here, this simple extract, whatever is there here, this I can call it as audit program for purchases. Audit program for purchases. So what is contained in this document? It is containing the details of verification procedures, what instructions are required to be followed, what is the status of the internal controls, what should be the sample size. So all that details will be there in one document called audit program. So like the way we have audit program for purchases, we will have audit program for incomes also, we will have audit program for assets also, we will have audit program for liabilities also, we will have audit program for notes to accounts also. So like that, in each and every area, within the time allocated, the person to whom that work has been allocated, what he is exactly required to do, what instructions is required to follow, that details will be there in a detailed document called audit program. Clear? So this is what basically 3 stages of the audit planning. Number 1, audit strategy. In the audit strategy, what will happen? It sets the overall scope and timing and direction of the audit. Basically, we are going to decide on only 2 things, timing and resources. Number 2, on the basis of that audit strategy, we are going to develop a audit plan. What will be there in the audit plan? Allocation of time and resources among different people. Then on the basis of audit plan, we are going to develop audit program. What is going to contain in the audit program? It contains a series of instructions, details, verification procedures, sample size, blah, blah, blah. So all the detailed instructions will be contained in that audit program. And this entire process of development of audit strategy, audit plan, audit program, this entire process, we are going to call it as audit planning. Audit planning is a process. The process of development of overall audit strategy, overall audit plan, audit program, this entire process we are going to call it as audit planning, whereas audit strategy is one kind of document, audit plan is one kind of document, audit program is one kind of document. That's it. Now, when we go to the content of the chapter, you will be able to find, while establishing audit strategy, what factors you will consider, what will be the benefits of audit strategy, in plan, what should be included, in audit program, what will be included. So like that, very generic questions will be there, no much concept, all the point wise questions will be there. So we'll go to the chapter now and quickly try to wind it up. So if you see here, the first question which they are asking is, what are the factors which are required to be considered by auditor while establishing overall audit strategy? So just now, as I have told, in the overall audit strategy, I decide only on 2 things. What is the time required? How many resources I require? Now you tell me how I will decide this. How I will decide how much time I want, how many resources I want for completing this audit. I have to take this decision. But how will I take that? Whatever comes to my mind, will I take that? For example, if I'm sleeping, I got a dream that I have to complete the audit within 5 days with 10 engagement team members. That's all. Will I decide that? No. So if you are deciding overall audit strategy, that should be on the basis of some factors. So what things you will try to keep in mind? If you are deciding this much time will be enough, these many resources are required, there should be some basis, no? So what factors you are going to consider in establishing overall audit strategy? How you are going to decide the time and resources? Very simple. First, you have to consider characteristics of the engagement. So what is my client doing? How many components have to do the audit? Am I required to conduct audit of the branches also? What is my client's applicable financial reporting framework? How many locations I have to do the audit? What is the volume of the transactions? So first thing which I have to consider is what are the characteristics of the engagement? What are the characteristics of the audit? Nothing but what are the features of my client? Like what is their financial reporting framework, to which industry it belong, what is should be my coverage, what kind of relationship exists between parent and component, how is any separate branch auditor is appointed, are there any services which are outsourced to others? So like that, first factor which I have to consider is characteristics of the engagement. Okay, sir, I will consider characteristics of the engagement. After that, what are your reporting objectives? What are your reporting objectives? How many reports you are required to give? Is there any timetable set by the management for reporting? Is there any due date within which the management is expecting? Is there any requirement to prepare extra reports? In the case of banks, you are required to submit one report to the shareholders, one report to the RBI, one report to so and so other persons. So like that, check what are your reporting requirements. Check at what point of time management will be available. Have discussions with the management. Have discussion with those charged with governance. By that, you will get to know what are the reporting requirements. Keeping that reporting requirements in mind, you decide your overall audit strategy. So two factors you have to consider: characteristics of the engagement. You have to consider your reporting objectives. What else, sir? Any other significant factors? If you find any other significant factor which is having an impact on your audit strategy, consider that other factors. If you have performed any other engagement for the same client, in the last year, you have done the tax audit for the same client. In case if you have performed other engagements for the client, use your past experience also. You make use of your past experience also. And also we'll try to perform something called preliminary engagement activities. At the beginning of the audit, we perform some activities called preliminary engagement activities. Sir, what will be included in the preliminary engagement activities? Number one, you have to check integrity. Sorry, something we say continuation and acceptance of client relationship, which we will discuss in SA 220. You need to perform some procedures to decide whether you will accept the client or not. Like you will check the integrity of the client. You will check whether you will be able to comply with the ethical requirements or not. And also you will check, are you independent of the company or not? So like that, you will perform some preliminary engagement activities. And also one more activity, you have to communicate with the previous auditor. In case last year audit position was held by somebody else, you have to communicate with your previous auditor. So like that, initially we do some activities which we generally call them as preliminary engagement activities. Even you have to use the knowledge which you have gained from preliminary engagement activities. So that's what they say here. You have to consider the results of preliminary engagement activities, and you can also use knowledge gained on other engagements wherever is relevant. So from the preliminary engagement activities and from knowledge gained on other engagements, a few examples are determination of materiality, finding out in which areas high risk of material misstatement is there, what is the impact of the risk of material misstatement, where they have to where the engagement team members have to maintain questioning mind. In case if the previous year's audit documentation is available, whether you will have access to that documentation or not, what will be the volume of transactions, how much importance organization is giving to internal controls. So like that, you can use all this information also in deciding the audit strategy. So what did I tell you? What and all you will consider? Characteristics of the engagement, reporting objectives, preliminary engagement activities, knowledge gained on other engagements. Not just that, even you have to consider your nature, timing, and extent of resources. So before deciding audit strategy, you should also pay attention what quality of resources you are having, how many resources you are having. For example, I am an audit firm. In my audit firm, totally some 20 staff are there. Out of this 20 staff, 10 staff are already occupied in some other works. 10 staff are already occupied in some other audits. So I have to do my audit with the remaining 10 staff only. So keeping that resources in mind, you decide the time accordingly. If you are able to use all your 20 staff, you could have said, I can complete the audit within 5 days only. Now, if you have to complete the audit with the 10 staff only, you have to increase your time from 5 days to 10 days. So also pay attention to nature, timing, and extent of the resources, and accordingly decide your audit strategy. So when the auditor is establishing audit strategy, he will not do something in a fluke. he will try to consider all these factors like characteristics of the engagement, reporting objectives, nature and extent of the resources, preliminary engagement activities, knowledge gained on other engagements. All these factors he will consider. Then he will establish audit strategy. Now, the next question is, sir, if I establish overall audit strategy, what is the benefit? Why can't I directly do the audit? Why I have to spend the time in establishing overall audit strategy? Why? Because if you spend overall audit strategy as an auditor, you will be benefited. How I will be benefited? If you establish overall audit strategy, you will come to know what kind of resources you want, what kind of resources you deploy. Whether you need experienced team members or you need less experienced team members, you can betterly take that decision. And also, how many number of resources you require, that also you can plan. How many resources you need? Do you need 5 resources, 10 resources? In which area? How many resources you want for physical verification? How many resources you want for cash verification? How many resources you want for substantive audit procedures? How many resources you want? You can betterly plan that. And also, when these resources are to be deployed, see, if you have 10 engagement team members, all the engagement team members need not be deployed from the beginning. At the risk assessment procedures, you might need 3 engagement team members. Once risk assessment procedures are over, while performing compliance procedures, you can add that extra 2. When compliance procedures are also over, when you have to perform substantive audit procedures, then the remaining 5 will come. So you can also take better decisions when to deploy that resources. And by having a overall audit strategy, you can betterly manage your resources also. You can betterly manage your resources also. That is what they try to say here. So 4 benefits of overall audit strategy. Number 1, employment of qualitative resources. Nothing but this is what I have told us. What kind of resources you want? You want experienced team members or less experienced team members? If the risk is high, you allocate experienced team members. In case of less complex areas, you allocate less experienced team members. So you can take better decision regarding what kind of resources you want. Allocation of quantity of resources. Nothing but this is how much. How many resources you want? That also you can betterly plan. Timing of deployment of resources. Nothing but this is what I have told as when you have to deploy the resources. And you can betterly manage your resources, you can betterly direct them, you can properly supervise them. So if you have overall audit strategy, this is how you are going to get benefited. Now coming to the next question, what are the advantages of planning? Sir, why we have to spend time in development of audit strategy, planning and program? As I have told, planning means overall process. Planning means it is an overall process of establishing audit strategy, plan and program. That process we call it as planning. Sir, what are the benefits of the planning, sir? So very generic points here you have. If you spend your time in planning, you will get to know what are the important areas to which you have to pay attention. If any problems arise, you can solve that problems in a timely manner. You can properly organize your engagement, and also you can properly select your engagement team members. You can betterly direct and supervise them, and easy coordination also will happen. Out of that, few advantages we have already seen above, like proper selection of engagement team. The same thing it is telling, employment of qualitative resources and direction and supervision. This advantage anyhow we have seen here, better management, direction and supervision. So repeated points, very generic question. So these are the benefits of planning. Next, what are the factors that affect nature and extent of planning? See, will you spend more time in planning or will you spend less time in planning? That depends on what factors. The meaning of this question is, when they ask you the question, what are the factors that affect nature and extent of planning? What do they mean by this is, will you spend a lot of time in planning or will you spend less amount of time in planning? That depends on what factors. Number 1, it depends on size of the client. If the client is very big, I have to spend more amount of time in planning. If the client size is small, I will spend less amount of time in planning. Complexity of my client. If my client is doing very complex transactions, I spend more time in planning. If my client is doing very simple transactions, I will spend less time in planning. It also depends on how experienced the auditor is. See, if the auditor is well experienced, he has already done this kind of audits in the past. Since I have already past experience and expertise, I spend less amount of time in planning for this year. On the other hand, this is my first audit, or this kind of client I have never done the audit before. If that is the case, I will spend more amount of time in audit planning. So it depends on auditor's past experience and expertise also. It also depends on facts and circumstances of each and every case. So how much nature and how much time and how much extent of time auditor is spending in planning, that depends on various factors like size and complexity of the auditing. Audit in the sense client, it depends on past experience and expertise. It also depends in changes of the circumstances. Understood? Now, the next question comes, sir, what will be the contents of audit plan? As I've told, audit plan will contain everything. Like it will contain who will do risk assessment procedures, who will do further audit procedures. In that further audit procedures also compliance, a substantive, and also it contains the details of any procedures required to be performed by the standards. Nothing but whatever you are about to do in the audit, all the things will be included in the audit plan. The same thing they say, the auditor should develop an audit plan that should include the nature, timing, and assessment, extent of risk assessment procedures. It should contain details of further audit procedures, any other audit procedure which is required as per the standard, that procedures also will be included. And one more question here, between audit strategy and audit plan, which one is more detailed version? Audit plan is much more detailed than audit strategy. In fact, first auditor will establish overall audit strategy. On the basis of that audit strategy, detailed audit plan will be developed. And also, development of audit strategy and audit plan, not two separate activities. They both are very closely related with each other. If you make change in one, automatically the other thing is also required to be changed. If you make a change in audit strategy, automatically the change will be required in the audit plan also. So both the development of audit strategy and audit plan are closely interrelated with each other. They are not two separate activities. They are very closely interrelated activities. Clear? So this is what regarding contents of the audit plan. Now, this is one more thing here. Planning, this statement is very important. Planning is not a discrete phase of an audit, but rather an continual and iterative process, repetitive process. They are telling planning is not just a one-time activity, it is a repetitive activity. It is a continuous process. When I say I'm doing planning, I'm going to do it continuously. It is not like at the beginning only I will develop the plan, I have to follow it no matter whatever happens. The standard did not say that. So at the beginning, we will develop the audit plan, audit strategy, and audit program. During the course of the audit, if required, we can make changes to our audit plan and strategy. There is no objection. There is no objection at all. So that is what the meaning of planning is not discrete phase. Planning is a continuous process. It happens continuously. It doesn't mean throughout the audit we'll be doing only planning. If throughout the audit we are doing only planning, then when we will do the audit, it doesn't mean that. So what that sentence means is, at the beginning we will do plan, we'll develop strategy, we'll build a plan, we'll develop audit program. But during the course of the audit, if at all required, I should be ready to make my changes to audit strategy, planning, and program. It is not any violation. You can happily do it. SA 300 also permits it. So that is what the meaning of the sentence. Planning is not a discrete phase of an audit, but rather it is an continuous and iterative process. Now a question will come to your mind, sir, because of what reasons we might be required to make a change in the planning? Because of what circumstances we might be required to make changes in our plan or strategy? So various examples could be, there could be results of unexpected events. All of a sudden, some unexpected event will happen. Like for example, we planned the audit with the 10 engagement team members. But out of this 10 engagement team members, 2 engagement team members became extremely sick. They are unable to come for audit. Now I planned, in the plan, I have allocated the work for all the 10 people. But 2 people are unable to come. Can I go and force them? No, whether you die also, I don't bother. Come and die at the client's premises. I have to follow my plan strictly. Will you be so rigid like that? No. These 2 people are unable to come. Then what will happen? Whatever work these 2 people are supposed to do, that work has to be taken up by remaining 8 persons. That means you are making a change to your plan. So like this, sometimes unexpected events could happen, which may be required you to make changes to your plan and strategy. Or sometimes conditions will change. Whatever conditions that are there at the beginning of the planning, the same conditions might not be there during the course of the audit. That also might require you to make changes. Or sometimes you obtain extra audit evidence. Sometimes you obtain extra audit evidence. Like for example, at the beginning, you thought that internal controls are strong. So that's why you planned for less substantive audit procedures. But later you realized that actually internal controls are not at all effective. Internal controls are very weak in the organization. Now you have to change your decision. You should spend more time for substantive audit procedures now. So like this, sometimes you might obtain extra evidence because of which you might be required to make changes to your planning decisions. And one more thing here, sometimes you might come to know about revised risk. Sometimes you might be required to revise your risk. If you are revising your risk, automatically changes are required to be made to your procedures as well. And also sometimes changes in the law will happen, government notifications will come, government policies will change. Because of that also you might be required to change your overall audit strategy and plan. So there could be n number of reasons why you might be required to make a change to your strategy and plan. And whenever those circumstances happen, you should be ready to do that. You should not be so rigid. You should be ready to accept that changes to your strategy and plan. Now, next one, let us talk about it is whose responsibility to prepare audit strategy and audit plan. You tell me, guys, it is whose responsibility to prepare audit strategy and audit plan? Undoubtedly, it is always auditor's responsibility to build the audit strategy and audit plan. But do you think auditor single-handedly will develop audit strategy and audit plan? Without the help of anybody else, do you think auditor single-handedly will develop audit strategy and audit plan? The answer is no. So ultimate responsibility for development of audit strategy and audit plan rests with the auditor. Agreed. But in the process of development of audit strategy and audit plan, the auditor is going to involve different people also. Sir, who are that different persons who will be involved in the development of audit strategy and audit plan? Undoubtedly, the auditor is going to involve his engagement team members, like his article assistants, his audit managers, his paid assistants. He has to involve his engagement team. Because if you involve engagement team, you will come to know what are the capabilities of the engagement team. If you get to know about their capabilities, you can betterly allocate the work to them. So undoubtedly, the auditor is going to involve his engagement team in the development of audit strategy and plan. Now, sir, do you think in the development of audit strategy and audit plan, should the auditor involve clients management and clients staff also? I'm asking you a question. Do you think is there a requirement for the auditor while establishing audit strategy and audit plan? Is there a requirement for the auditor to include clients management and client staff also? The answer is yes. Why? Because if we have to do the audit at various instances, we need the help of the clients management and staff. For example, if I wanted to conduct inquiry of the sales in charge, whenever I want to conduct that inquiry, that sales in charge should be available. So if you let them know when you are going to do the inquiry, they will become available at that point of time. So we have to do the audit taking the help of the management and clients staff. So better you involve clients management and clients staff also in the development of strategy and plan. But here you have to be very careful. When I say you have to involve clients management and clients staff, you should not discuss a detailed audit plan with them. If you discuss a detailed audit plan with them, whatever you're going to do become predictable and there is no purpose of doing the audit only. So that's why involve the clients management and clients staff only to the extent their involvement is necessary. Don't discuss a detailed audit plan with them. If you do that, your audit effectiveness will be lost. So final conclusion is ultimate responsibility for establishment of strategy and plan rests with the rests with the auditor. But in that development, the auditor is going to involve the engagement team. He's also going to involve clients management and clients staff. Next one, sir, whatever audit strategy I'm developing, whatever audit plan I have developed, is there any requirement to document it? 100% yes. You are required to document your audit plan and strategy. Sir, what and all I have to document? Overall audit strategy, whatever you have established. What is your audit plan? If at all you have made any changes to your audit strategy and audit plan during the course of the audit, that changed audit strategy and audit plan along with the reasons why you have made that changes, that reasons are also required to be documented. Sir, why document is important? Why documentation is important? If the auditor documents audit strategy, audit plan, how he will be benefited? He will be benefited because if you document it, there will be a record of all the important decisions you have taken. At the planning phase, you take various important decisions. If you document it in future, if you want to revisit that important decisions, it will have a record. So that is first advantage. And also it is a record of nature, timing and extent of risk assessment procedures. If tomorrow someone is coming and asking you, boss, did you plan your procedures properly? What nature of audit procedures you have performed? What extent of audit procedures you have performed? Whether you did the work properly or not? If I have my audit documentation in which I have included my strategy and plan, I can show them, boss, see my strategy, see my plan. I have performed a proper audit procedures. I can show them. And not just that, even you are recording for reasons for changes in the strategy and plan. In case if you have changed your audit strategy and plan, if tomorrow someone is coming and asking you why you have changed your audit strategy and plan, I will have the reasons also. See, these changes I have made, because of these reasons I have made the changes. So it will act as a record of key decisions. It will act as a record of nature, timing and extent of procedures you have performed. It will also act as a record of reasons for making changes in the audit strategy and audit plan. So that is how the auditor will be benefited in case if he documents his strategy and plan. Clear? So till here, whatever questions are there, those are actually talking about strategy and plan. So two parts we are done, but we have one more component of audit planning, which is audit program, that we will discuss now. We have one question regarding audit program. If we discuss that one question, we can happily wind up the chapter. So let us have a look at that last concept relating to audit program. So let us try to discuss this question number 10. So as I've already told you, what will be there in the audit program? So audit program is going to contain, it is a more detailed document. It is going to contain instructions, verification procedures. So all the details are going to be there here. So like as you could see here, an audit program is commonly prepared to allocate work to team members, which will include the list of audit procedures, what instructions are to be followed by the member. So detailed document within the time allocated, within the duration, what verification procedures are required to be performed, what instructions are required to be followed, all that things will be there. And it will also contain audit objectives for each area, and it will have sufficient detail to serve as a set of instructions or to the assistants involved. Nothing but 1 and 2 both are trying to convey same point, just they are going to play with the language. Sir, when I have to establish an audit program, like I gave you one example, for purchases we have developed an audit program. Sir, while developing this purchases audit program, what things I will try to consider? Like if you remember, I have written various instructions in our audit program. I wrote various instructions like whatever invoices are there which are more than 1 lakh, try to get external confirmation. 10 lakhs to 1 lakh, take a sample size of 50%, do inquiry, do inspection. These instructions I have added, no? On what basis I will add? What factors I will consider generally for developing this audit program? So first I will consider what is the nature of the business in which the organization is engaged. What kind of business my client is doing. How I will come to know what kind of business my client is doing? By visiting the client's office. Go and visit the client's office. If it is a manufacturing entity, go and see their production process. See what kind of records they are keeping, what kind of internal controls they are following, how the accounts department is organized, who and all are different people involved in the accounts department. So if you visit the client's office and get to understand all these things, then you will come to know which instruction will be appropriate, what document you have to verify, which technique you will follow. You will get better clarity only when you understand what is the nature of the business in which your client is involved. And how to know about that nature of the client's business? Go and visit the office. As simple as that. Okay. So I will consider nature of the business. What else I will consider, sir, in establishing audit program? Overall plan. One thing you should always remember, my audit program should be in line with audit plan. For example, in the audit plan, while developing audit plan, for purchases, I have allocated 2 days of time only. Then when I am developing audit program, it should contain only those instructions which could be completed within this 2 days of time. It should not be like in my audit plan, I have allocated 2 days of time, but in the audit program, I am giving those many instructions which will easily take 4 days of time. You tell me, will that be an appropriate audit program? 100% not. So that's why you need to build an audit program which is in line with audit plan. If at all required, first change the audit plan, then only develop the detailed audit program. So this is the second most important thing which you have to consider while establishing audit program. It should be always in line with audit plan. Next one, you should also pay attention to internal controls and accounting procedures. You should also try to understand what kind of internal controls are there in that area, whether those controls are working effectively or not working effectively. So what is the control risk from there? What kind of accounting software the client is following? Are they using Tally? Are they using customized software? What are that internal controls within the accounting software? So before establishing audit program, you should also study the client's internal control system and their accounting procedures. Finally, you should pay attention to size of the organization and what is its management structure. You should also try to understand information regarding organization of the business. When I say organization of the business, you should also try to understand what is the client's history, how long they have been in business, read the past few years financial statements and all. And even you should understand what kind of policies management is following, what kind of accounting policies, what kind of management policies are there in the organization. You should study all these things, then you have to develop the audit program. So if they ask you the question, what factors you will consider in development of audit program, what you are going to write? Number 1, nature of business in which the organization is engaged. Number 2, it should be in line with overall audit plan. Number 3, you have to study the internal control system and their accounting procedures. You have to study about the size of the organization. And also you need to understand information as regard organization of the business. And then finally, you should also understand their accounting and management policies. Now, if you remember, I told you that You will establish audit strategy and audit plan. If required, you can make changes to your audit strategy and audit plan, right? Can we do that for audit program also? Initially, we will develop an audit program. If required, can we make changes to that audit program also? 100% yes. There is no hard and fast rule which says once you have developed an audit program, you have to follow it strictly. There is no such rule. If required, we can make the changes to our audit program. So because of what circumstances we can change our program? Like sometimes there could be changes in the circumstances, unexpected events could be there, what we expected that might not happen, or we might get some extra evidence. So because of all these reasons, we might be required to make changes to our audit program, and you are permitted to do it happily. No objection from the standard. So that's what they say. Given below are few examples of the circumstances where audit program could be changed. So initially you designed audit procedures for a certain volume of turnover, but later the turnover has actually increased. See, you have started doing the audit before closure of the financial year. You thought, since year is not yet closed, you thought, okay, this company hardly will make a turnover of 100 crores. Accordingly, I have designed my instructions. But after the closure of the year, you realized that the turnover of the company has gone to 500 crores. Now what you should do? Initially, you planned the instructions assuming the turnover of the company will be 100 crore, but actual turnover became 500 crores. You tell me, will you make changes to your audit program or not? 100%. And also, when during the course of an audit, it has been discovered that internal control procedures were not effective. Initially, you thought internal controls were effective. Accordingly, you designed your instructions. But later you came to know that your conclusion was wrong. Internal controls are not effective. They are suffering from various weaknesses. Now, will you make changes to your audit program or not? 100% yes. And when there is a significant increase in the book dates or inventory as compared with the last year, then also you will make changes to your audit program. And if you have any suspicion, then also you make changes to your audit program. So these are the few examples of the circumstances. Once again, I'm telling this is not a conclusive list. These are only illustrative examples. So these are the few examples of the circumstances because of which you might be required to make changes to your audit program. That's all. This is what regarding audit program. Then you will have one small concept called audit execution. This is not anything new here. If you want to do the audit, if you want to complete the audit, if you want to execute the audit, what and all are various phases involved. First, as we have just now seen, first we have to do the planning. Execution we have to plan. Audit we have to plan. Like we have to establish audit strategy, audit plan, audit program. All this we have to do. That is the first phase. Then risk and control evaluation. Nothing but you have to perform risk assessment procedures and compliance procedures to study the internal controls to verify whether the controls are working effectively or not. After that, you have to do the actual testing. Nothing but here is where we perform substantive audit procedures, and from there we get evidence. And on the basis of that evidence, whatever our findings are there, on the basis of that findings, we have to prepare our report. Is it something new we are discussing? No, we already know it. So when we say execution, what are the key phases in audit execution? These are 4 phases. First, you have to do the planning. Then you have to do risk and control evaluation. Nothing but risk assessment and compliance procedures you have to do. After that, you have to do actual testing. Nothing but substantive audit procedures you have to do. Then you will get evidence. Then you will have findings. Depending on your evidence, depending on your findings, you have to prepare your audit report, which contains your opinion. That's it. Clear, everybody? So this is what regarding audit execution. That's all, guys. We are successfully done with the chapter audit strategy, planning and program. Nothing more left here to discuss. Okay, right.